What happens when the greatest threat to a monarchy doesn't come from protesters outside the gates, but from someone seated at the royal dinner table?
Everyone bows and curtsies to the king, and no one moves a limb, a muscle, when Camilla passes. And that was because...
What could possibly render one of the most composed women in modern royal history utterly speechless? For decades, Camilla has stood beside King Charles through scandal, transition, and the quiet way to duty, rarely allowing the public to see anything but measured calm. Yet reports swirling around a recent royal development suggest a moment cut through even that practiced composure. Before we go further, it's worth pausing on what is actually known, what has been publicly reported by credible royal correspondents, and where speculation begins, because headlines promising a sudden announcement often blend confirmed fact with dramatic framing. What follows is an attempt to separate the two, tracing the real, documented context behind a story that has captured attention far beyond royal watchers, and asking what it reveals about a monarchy already in the midst of profound change. To understand why any statement from Charles could carry such weight, it helps to remember the last 2 years have not been ordinary ones for the House of Windsor. In February 2024, Buckingham Palace confirmed that the king had been diagnosed with a form of cancer, discovered incidentally during treatment for an unrelated condition. The announcement itself was notable not for its content alone, but for its candor, a marked departure from the secrecy that once defined royal health matters. Historians of the monarchy, including biographer Robert Hardman, have noted that Charles had consistently favored transparency, where his predecessors preferred silence, a shift shaped by his decades observing how opacity eroded public trust in previous generations. That willingness to speak plainly is central to understanding the current story. Since his diagnosis, Charles has continued a reduced but visible schedule of public engagements, and palace officials have periodically updated the public on his condition without offering granular medical detail. Camilla, throughout this period, has taken on a more prominent public role, appearing at events her husband could not attend, and, according to multiple royal correspondents, absorbing additional institutional responsibility while maintaining her own charitable commitments, particularly around literacy, domestic abuse awareness, and osteoporosis research, a cause tied to her mother's experience with the condition. Against this backdrop, talk of a sudden announcement on the monarchy fits into a broader pattern that has been building for years rather than emerging from nowhere. Charles has spoken openly, both before and after his accession, about his intention to preside over what commentators have called a slimmed-down monarchy. Fewer working royals, tighter public funding through the sovereign grant, and a sharper focus on institutions that can demonstrate clear public value. This is not new rhetoric. As Prince of Wales, Charles discussed similar ideas in interviews and in Jonathan Dimbleby's authorized biography decades ago, long before he wore the crown. What has changed is the urgency imposed by circumstance, a health crisis that has forced the institution to confront questions of succession, continuity, and public communication far sooner than anyone might have chosen. It is within this context that reports of Camilla appearing visibly moved or even momentarily unable to respond should be read carefully. No verified transcript, official palace statement, or credible outlet has produced a direct quotation capturing a private exchange between the king and queen regarding a specific announcement. What has been documented are public appearances where Camilla's expression, body language, or brief remarks to press and well-wishers were interpreted by observers as emotional. Royal watchers are skilled at reading these moments, but interpretation is not confirmation, and responsible reporting distinguishes between the two. Where a headline claims she was left speechless, the more grounded reality is likely that she, like many close to a person managing serious illness while carrying constitutional duties, has shown visible strain and tenderness in public settings that even trained composure cannot fully mask. Still, something has clearly shifted in the tone coming from Windsor and Buckingham Palace in recent months. Statements attributed to palace communications teams have increasingly referenced long-term planning, a phrase that in royal parlance often signals discussions about the eventual transition to Prince William's reign. This is not evidence of imminent abdication, a possibility Charles has repeatedly and explicitly ruled out in past remarks, consistent with his mother's lifelong position that a monarch serves until death. Rather, Analysts suggest it reflects an institution quietly preparing its structures, finances, and public messaging for a future that Charles's diagnosis has made feel less distant and more tangible than it once did. Historical context makes this moment easier to place. The British monarchy has weathered comparable inflection points before. When George VI's health failed in the early 1950s, the family and government engaged in careful, largely private preparation for Elizabeth's eventual accession, even as they maintained public reassurance. Decades later, Elizabeth II owned diamond and platinum jubilees became opportunities to signal continuity while gradually easing senior family members into greater public responsibility. Charles appears to be following a similar playbook, using visible milestones, state openings of Parliament, Commonwealth engagements, and charitable initiatives as vehicles to demonstrate both his continued capacity to reign and his commitment to preparing the next generation. Camilla's position within this evolving picture is more central than many casual observers assume. Since being formally recognized as Queen Consort at the coronation in May 2023, and subsequently referred to simply as Queen in official context, she has taken on ceremonial duties once distributed among a wider circle of working royals. Her public schedule has included engagements representing the crown at events the king could not attend during periods of treatment, a responsibility that royal historians note carries symbolic weight beyond its practical function. It signals institutional continuity, the monarchy functioning smoothly even when its principal figure is unwell. The specific announcement referenced in the sensational framing of this story most plausibly connects to public remarks Charles has made, or is reported to be preparing, regarding the monarchy's future structure, funding, or ceremonial role. Palace watchers have speculated for months about potential changes to which family members hold official patronages, how the sovereign grant might be adjusted amid public scrutiny of royal finances, and how coronation-era promises about a more compact, cost-conscious monarchy might be formalized. None of these possibilities have been confirmed as a single dramatic declaration. Rather, they represent an accumulation of institutional signals that, taken together, suggest change is coming, even if its precise shape remains undisclosed. It's worth acknowledging, too, that uncertainty itself generates a kind of emotional reaction headlines love to seize upon. If Charles has indeed begun discussing more concrete plans for succession, funding reform, or his own reduced public role due to health, it would be entirely human for Camilla, who has known him for over 5 decades and married him after years of public scrutiny and personal sacrifice, to respond with visible emotion. Devotion of that duration does not remain unaffected by mortality, however dignified the public face. That emotional truth doesn't require fabricated quotations or invented private scenes to be moving. The documented facts alone, a monarch managing cancer while trying to secure his institution's future, and a wife supporting him through both the personal and constitutional weight of that task, carry their own quiet gravity. What makes this story resonate beyond royal enthusiasts is its universality. Behind the crowns and ceremonial titles lies a story familiar to countless families. A spouse confronting illness, a partner absorbing new responsibilities almost overnight, and difficult conversations about what comes next that no one wants to have but everyone eventually must. The monarchy's particular circumstance is that these private negotiations play out under constant public observation, filtered through correspondents, biographers, and now the rapid amplification of digital media, where a single photograph of a strained expression can become speechless within hours, whether or not that word accurately describes what occurred. As this story continues to develop, credible updates will likely come through official palace statements, verified reporting from established royal correspondents, and Charles's own public appearances, rather than through anonymous claims or dramatized reconstructions. Royal historians frequently caution that the institution's greatest strength has always been its capacity to project stability even amid personal turmoil, a discipline instilled across generations and visible again now in how carefully both Charles and Camilla have continued their public duties despite everything unfolding beneath the surface. In the end, what this moment reflects may be less about a single dramatic announcement and more about the slow, deliberate reshaping of an 800-year-old institution by two people trying to honor both its traditions and its uncertain future. Camilla's reported reaction, whatever its true nature, stands as a reminder that even those born into public duty remain, at their core, human beings facing the same fears and tenderness the rest of us do. Perhaps that is a real story here. Not a shocking declaration meant to destabilize the crown, but quiet, courageous act of preparation, carried out by a king determined to leave his monarchy steadier than he found it, and a queen consort learning in real time how to carry that weight beside him.